Marcus Whitfield's granddaughter died 6 years ago. He buried her himself. Then a missing persons alert showed a girl with his son's eyes at a rural address 3 hours away. The report called her mentally unstable, dangerous. Marcus didn't call the police. He drove there alone. The tablet's blue glow lit Marcus's face in the dark living room. He'd fallen asleep in Derek's old recliner again, the one his son used to curl up in as a boy. At 68, Marcus's body complained about these nights, but the village house held too many memories to sleep properly in a bed meant for two. The missing persons alert scrolled across the news feed. He almost swiped past it. Then he saw the eyes. Amber. Not brown, not hazel. Amber like honey held up to sunlight. Derek's eyes. The eyes Marcus saw every time he looked at his son's childhood photos. The eyes that had looked up at him from a hospital bed 7 years ago, before the machines went silent. His thumb trembled over the screen. The girl in the photo was 14, maybe 15. Thin face. Hair pulled back tight. A small dark birthmark visible on her neck, just below her left ear. Marcus stood so fast, the recliner rocked. He walked to the hallway, stopped at the door he opened once a week. To dust. Amara's room. Frozen at age 8. He pulled a photo from the dresser. Amara at 6. Gap-toothed smile. Derek holding her on his shoulders. He zoomed in on her neck. The same birthmark. His hand found the wall. The photo described the girl as Zara Johnson. Mentally unstable. History of violent outbursts. Maybe a danger to herself and others. Last seen near a rural address, 3 hours north, close to the Tennessee border. Marcus didn't call his lawyer. Didn't call the tip line. He grabbed his truck keys and his wallet and walked out into the pre-dawn darkness. The GPS led him down roads that narrowed from asphalt to gravel to dirt. By the time he reached the address, the sun had climbed high enough to show him everything he didn't want to see. A sagging trailer home, with rust bleeding through white paint. A yard choked with weeds and car parts, and a detached garage, windowless, with a padlock hanging from the door. Marcus parked 50 yards back. His hands wouldn't leave the steering wheel. He'd built a technology empire from nothing. Walked into boardrooms full of men who wanted to break him. Buried his wife and his son, and a granddaughter he'd loved like breath itself. But sitting in that truck, staring at that padlock, his hands shook. He forced himself out, walked to the trailer, knocked. The woman who answered was white, mid-40s, wearing a bathrobe, and suspicion in equal measure. "Help you?" "I saw the missing persons report," Marcus said. His voice came out steady. "Good. About Zara. I live about an hour from here. Thought maybe I could help." The woman's shoulders dropped half an inch. "You with the police?" "No, ma'am. Just a concerned citizen." She studied him, then opened the door wider. "Vanessa Johnson. That's my daughter you're talking about. Adopted her when she was 9. She's got problems. Serious problems." Marcus stepped into a living room that smelled like cigarettes and fried food. A man's work boots sat by the door. NASCAR played on mute, on a TV too large for the space. "What kind of problems?" Marcus asked. "Hears things that ain't there. Says things that don't make sense. Doctors called it schizophrenia." Vanessa lit a cigarette. Didn't offer him a seat. "She ran off 2 days ago. Does it sometimes when she gets worked up. Always comes back, though. Girl's got nowhere else to go. The report said she might be dangerous. She threw a plate at my husband once. Cut his arm up pretty good." Vanessa tapped ash into a Coke can. "We do our best, but she needs more help than we can give. Been trying to get her into a state facility." Marcus's jaw ached from clenching. "You have photos of her? Recent ones?" Vanessa pulled out her phone, swiped through images, school pictures, a thin girl in an oversized uniform, eyes focused somewhere past the camera. It was her, Amara, 6 years older, 20 pounds lighter, but her. Your husband home? Marcus asked. Works nights. Be back around 6. Vanessa glanced toward the window. You should probably go before then. Raymond don't like strangers. Marcus nodded, thanked her, walked back to his truck. He drove a quarter-mile down the road, pulled behind a cluster of pine trees, and waited. Midnight came with a silence so complete, Marcus could hear his pulse in his ears. He grabbed the tire iron from his truck bed and walked back along the tree line, staying off the road. No lights in the trailer. The garage sat separate, 30 yards from the house, paint peeling in strips. He approached from the back. The padlock was new, heavy-duty. The door was not. He wedged the tire iron into the gap and pulled. Wood cracked. The lock held, but the screws ripped free from rotted wood. The smell hit him first. Unwashed body, human waste, spoiled food. Then he heard the crying. A chain rattled in the darkness. Marcus fumbled for his phone, turned on the flashlight. The beam found her in the corner, chained to a steel support beam by her ankle, sitting in her own filth, a metal dog bowl near her feet, and on the wall behind her, written in black marker on a piece of cardboard, mentally ill, do not release. The girl raised her arm against the light. Please don't. Please, I'll be quiet. I promise I'll be quiet. Marcus's knees almost gave out. He lowered the light, hands shaking so hard, the beam danced across the floor. Amara. The crying stopped. Amara Whitfield. The girl lowered her arm, stared at him with Derek's eyes. I don't, she whispered. I don't know that name. Marcus knelt slowly, keeping distance between them. His throat closed around words that wouldn't come. He tried again. Your father's name was Derek. He used to sing to you. A Beatles song. Blackbird. The girl's breathing changed, fast, shallow. He had a birthmark on his shoulder shaped like Florida, Marcus continued. You used to trace it with your finger and make up stories about alligators. Tears cut lines through the dirt on her face. The tall man, with warm hands. That was him, baby. That was your daddy. He sang, she said. Her voice cracked. He sang about broken wings. Marcus's vision blurred. You remember? They told me I made it up, that I was sick, that nobody wanted me. The chain scraped as she pulled her knees to her chest. They said my family was glad I was gone. Marcus moved forward slowly, the way he'd approach a wounded animal. I buried you. I stood at your grave every Sunday for 6 years. I never stopped wanting you. She watched him with an expression too old for 14. Who are you? I'm your grandfather's sweetheart, and I'm taking you home. Marcus wrapped her in his jacket and carried her to the truck. She weighed nothing. He could feel her ribs through the fabric, count each vertebra of her spine. She didn't fight him, didn't speak, just pressed her face against his shoulder and shook. He drove to Atlanta with one hand on the wheel, the other holding hers. She stared out the window as the landscape changed from rural darkness to suburban sprawl to the glittering towers of downtown. When he'd asked her what happened, the words came in fragments, pieces of a story that wouldn't fit together right. She remembered being sick, the hospital, white walls and beeping machines, then waking up somewhere else. Vanessa telling her the sickness had made her confused, that her real family had given her up, that she was lucky someone wanted her at all. They kept me in the garage at night, Amara said. Her voice was flat, mechanical. During the day, they took me to clean houses. In towns far enough away, nobody would ask questions. They kept the money, said I owed them for food and medicine. Marcus's knuckles went white on the steering wheel. When I asked about my old life, Vanessa said I was having episodes. She showed me papers, adoption papers, a death certificate with my name on it. Amara turned to look at him. Was I really dead? No, baby. You were never dead. Then why did you bury me? Marcus pulled into the parking garage beneath his building, stopped the truck, and turned to face her fully. Someone lied. Someone took you and made everyone believe you were gone. But I promise you, on your father's memory, I will find out who and why. The penthouse was 60 floors up, with views that stretched to the horizon. Amara stood in the entryway, still wearing his jacket over clothes too dirty to describe, and stared at marble floors that caught the city lights like water. You live here? She asked. Sometimes. Marcus guided her inside. There's a bathroom down that hall. Clean towels in the closet. Take as long as you need. I'll find you something to wear. She disappeared for an hour. Marcus made phone calls, called his private investigator, a woman named Keisha, who'd worked with him for 15 years, gave her Vanessa's name, Raymond's name, the address, the story, told her to find everything. When Amara emerged, she was wearing one of his button-down shirts like a dress. Her hair was still wet. The birthmark on her neck stood out against clean skin. There's food, Marcus said. When you're ready. She sat at the kitchen island while he made eggs and toast. She ate like someone who'd learned not to trust that more food would come. Fast, efficient, eyes on the plate. The doctor will be here in the morning, Marcus said. Private, discreet. She'll check you over, make sure you're okay. Amara set down her fork. Why didn't you call the police? Marcus poured her water, watched her drink it in 3 long swallows. Because I don't trust them to believe you. Not yet. Not until I have proof that what happened to you wasn't an accident. What if they're right? Her voice dropped to almost nothing. What if I am crazy? What if I made everything up? Marcus reached across the island, waited until she met his eyes. Then why do you remember your father's song? She didn't answer, just picked up the fork and kept eating. Keisha delivered her report 3 days later in Marcus's downtown office. Amara sat beside him, wearing new clothes that still hung loose as on her frame. Keisha spread documents across the conference table, like dealing cards. Vanessa Johnson worked as a nurse at Mercy General 6 years ago. She was on duty the night Amara was admitted with pneumonia. Keisha tapped a hospital record. 2 days later, Amara was declared dead, cause listed as respiratory failure. But the signature on the death certificate doesn't match any doctor employed at that hospital. Marcus's jaw clenched. Forged. Forged, Keisha confirmed. Vanessa processed the paperwork herself, arranged the release of the body to a funeral home owned by her cousin. Except no body was ever released. Amara was discharged during a shift change with falsified adoption papers listing Vanessa as her legal guardian. Amara's hand found Marcus's arm. He covered it with his own. Keisha slid another document forward. Over the past 6 years, Vanessa and Raymond received $180,000 in Social Security survivor benefits, meant for Amara's care. They sold me, Amara said quietly. They exploited you, Keisha corrected. But that's not all. She pulled up a spreadsheet on her laptop. I found 7 other families in a 3-state radius who hired Vanessa's cleaning service, all paid in cash. None knew they were using child labor. Marcus stood, walked to the window. The city sprawled below him, indifferent and enormous. What about Amara's mother? Keisha's expression changed. Softer, sadder. Shanice signed away custody 4 months before Amara's hospitalization. She was 23, recently widowed, struggling with addiction. The state offered her a buyout. She took it and disappeared. Current whereabouts unknown. Amara made a sound. Not quite a sob. Not quite a gasp. Marcus turned back. Set up a meeting. Vanessa and Raymond, tell them we want to discuss a settlement regarding their daughter's care. Use my corporate office. Tomorrow. Marcus, Keisha said carefully, if you're thinking what I think you're thinking, I'm not thinking anything illegal, Marcus said. I'm thinking about justice. Vanessa and Raymond walked into the 42nd floor conference room, wearing their Sunday best. Raymond's tie was crooked. Vanessa clutched a purse with both hands. They looked at the floor-to-ceiling windows, the leather chairs, the crystal water pitchers, and Marcus could see them calculating their odds. Marcus sat at the head of the table in a charcoal suit. His lawyer, James, sat to his left. To his right, Amara. Clean. Fed. Wearing a navy dress and looking every inch like the granddaughter of a billionaire. Vanessa saw her and went pale. Please, sit, Marcus said. His voice was quiet, calm. The voice he'd used in boardrooms when he was about to destroy someone's career. Raymond sat. Vanessa remained standing. What is this? A conversation? Marcus gestured to James, who pressed a button on a tablet. Amara's voice filled the room. Her testimony, recorded 2 days prior, every detail. The garage, the chain, the sign, the years of forced labor. Vanessa shook her head. She's lying. She's sick. We have papers, forged papers, Marcus interrupted. He slid a folder across the table, including the death certificate you signed. A death certificate for a girl who's sitting right here. Raymond stood. We're leaving. 2 security guards stepped in front of the door. Marcus continued, as if Raymond hadn't spoken. You stole my granddaughter. You locked her in a garage like an animal. You profited from her pain for 6 years. And when she tried to tell the truth, you called her insane. We saved her, Vanessa said. Her voice climbed toward hysteria. She would have gone into foster care. We gave her a home. You gave her a chain, Marcus said. He slid another document forward. A confession. 2 pages. Everything they'd done, laid out in legal language that wouldn't be misunderstood. At the bottom, a signature line. You're going to sign this, Marcus said. Then you're going to walk out of here and never speak her name again. If you do, I will pursue criminal charges. I will use every resource I have to ensure you spend the rest of your lives in prison. If you sign, I won't. That's the deal. Vanessa grabbed the document, read it with shaking hands. This ruins us. We lose everything. You had no right to anything, Marcus said. His voice dropped lower, colder. You had no right to her. Raymond signed first. Vanessa signed after, tears ruining her mascara. Marcus took the document back. Get out. They left. The door closed behind them. Amara's shoulders started shaking, not crying, laughing. A high, broken sound that scared Marcus more than her silence had. He moved to her side, put his arm around her. She pressed her face into his shoulder, and the laughter turned into sobs that sounded like they'd been building for 6 years. It's over, Marcus said. Baby, it's over. The state medical board revoked Vanessa's nursing license. Raymond lost his job when word spread through their small town. Someone spray-painted liars across their trailer. They declared bankruptcy and moved before summer ended. Marcus didn't celebrate. He enrolled Amara in a private school, hired the best trauma therapist in Atlanta, and waited. The nightmares came most nights. Panic attacks when doors closed too fast. A flinch when anyone reached toward her too quickly. 3 months after he'd found her, Amara asked to visit Derek's grave. They drove to the cemetery on a Saturday morning. The headstone was simple granite. Derek Whitfield, beloved son and father. Marcus kept flowers there year-round. Today, Amara knelt and traced her father's name with one finger. "Tell me about him," she said. So Marcus did. He told her how Derek had taught himself piano, how he'd wanted to be a music teacher, how he'd cried when Amara was born because he couldn't believe something that perfect could be real. "He sang to you every night," Marcus said, "even when you were too young to remember. He'd hold you, and sing Blackbird until you fell asleep." Amara pressed her palm flat against the stone. "I remember his hands. They were always warm. He loved you more than breathing." She looked up at Marcus. "What if I'm broken? What if they're right, and I can't be fixed?" Marcus knelt beside her, the damp ground soaked through his pants. "You're not broken. You're surviving. There's a difference." "How do you know?" "Because you're here. Because you remembered. Because you're asking questions." He touched her hand. "Broken things don't fight this hard to heal." They stayed until the sun started setting. On the drive home, Amara asked him to teach her the rest of Blackbird. He sang it softly, one line at a time, and she repeated after him until she had it memorized. A year later, Marcus moved back to the village full-time. The city had too much noise for Amara, too many reminders of the garage and the chain. She attended the local high school, made friends slowly, learned to sleep through the night more often than not. Marcus used his wealth the way he'd always intended, to build something that mattered. He established Amara's house, a foundation dedicated to finding missing black children who'd been dismissed as runaways or mentally ill. He funded private investigators, offered rewards, partnered with grassroots organizations that did the work police departments wouldn't. In the first year, they located 11 children. 3 had been trafficked. 5 had been hidden by family members who'd forged documents. 2 were living on the streets. 1 had been locked in a basement for 3 years. On the anniversary of finding Amara, they drove back to the rural property. The trailer stood empty, windows boarded, "For sale" sign crooked in the yard. The garage door hung open on broken hinges. Amara got out of the truck without being asked, walked across the overgrown yard, stepped inside the garage where she'd spent 2 years of her life. Marcus followed her to the doorway, stopped, let her have the moment. She stood where the chain had been. The metal bowl was gone. The cardboard sign was gone. But the smell remained, faint, ghost-like. Amara pulled a permanent marker from her pocket. She walked to the wall, found the space where the sign had hung, and wrote in large block letters, "I survived. My name is Amara Whitfield." She capped the marker, turned to Marcus. "Can we go home now?" "Yeah, baby. We can go home." They drove back, as the sun painted the sky orange and gold. That night, after dinner, Amara found Marcus in the living room. She sat beside him in Derek's old recliner. "Teach me the song again," she said. So he did. And this time, she sang it all the way through without stopping. Her voice was rough, unpracticed, but it was hers. When she reached the final line, "You were only waiting for this moment to be free," Marcus realized she wasn't just singing about blackbirds. She was singing about herself. Later, after she'd gone to bed, Marcus checked on her, the way he had every night since he'd brought her home. Her door was open. The window was cracked to let in night air. She slept on her side, one hand tucked under the pillow, her face peaceful in a way it hadn't been a year ago. Marcus stood in the doorway and understood something he hadn't before. She hadn't just been waiting to be found. She'd been waiting to remember who she was, beneath the lies they'd told her. And now, finally, she was becoming that person again. He turned off the hall light and went to his own room. Tomorrow, there would be more work, more missing children to find, more families to reunite, more people like Vanessa and Raymond who thought they could steal someone's truth and replace it with convenient lies. But tonight, Marcus Whitfield slept soundly for the first time in 6 years because his granddaughter was home, because she knew her name, because every time she sang that song, she was choosing freedom over the garage, truth over the chain, and herself over everyone who'd tried to make her disappear. And that, Marcus thought, as sleep finally took him, was the only justice that mattered.